Welcome to Hill, Ho, and Called. Remember, sometimes the hardest seasons aren't loud, they're quiet, personal, and hidden. Today's conversation is for the mother and leader who found herself in a season she couldn't fix. Julie Amy is a mother of six, bonus mom to two, grandmother, and longtime childcare leader. But what shaped her most wasn't her experience. It was the painful season of a separation from one of her children that forced her to stop striving and truly surrender. What felt like loss became refinement. What felt broken became rebuilding. Welcome, Julie. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. I'm glad to be here.
So, can you share with the world where you're joining us from?
I am joining you from Southeast Michigan, where yesterday it was 86 degrees, and today we'll be lucky to hit 70. So we're one of those places where you're just grateful every day if there's a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah, I get it. Well, we went from really hot and humid yesterday to nice, and you go outside and you can breathe and not have to slice the air with the knife. I'm like, whew, thank goodness for that, right? So, all right, let's jump in. When you look back, Julie, at the season of separation, what do you think God was gently showing you about yourself that you couldn't see before?
I think there's something really tricky in there. I mean, when I talk about six kids, I'm talking about a span of 20 years. My oldest is 32, and my youngest is 13. So I am completely and totally and fully still in this mom season where I'm still driving to lessons in school, and she does have an alarm where she gets herself up and gets ready, but we're still checking homework and making sure that all of that moral character stuff is still being built and protecting the innocence of what is around that very last little person in our world, separate from the grandkids that are now in our mix. I think when you're talking about 32 to 13, and when you're talking about the separation of 20 years of being a mom and being all of the different versions of where I was in my growth and development during all of those years, I think it's really interesting to find yourself and who you are and what you need to turn into while you're going through all of those phases of not only your own life, but of their life. So I think probably my biggest learning curve was learning how to be the parent to adult children and learning that I needed to let go and let them a little.
Oh, that's awesome. So you led and you nurtured so many, both in your family and professionally. How did that season challenge the way you saw yourself as a mother and a leader?
I think really it was really interesting that I kind of learned where that came from. I think in my own personal development journey, I learned where some of that came from. And some of that came from having a tumultuous a young person life where I was kind of a protector of myself. And so then growing into adulthood and having children of my own, I still felt the need to do a whole lot of protecting. So not only was I protecting my own children, but then I felt compelled to protect other ducklings that were surrounding me. And so as I own now 2 childcare centers for over 20 years, and I even have staff members who have been with me for that whole entire time that I've owned my business. I think I've spent a lot of time collecting and trying to make sure that I was keeping everyone safe and creating that place around them where they were loved and accepted and protected from whatever perceived and real dangers might have been in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think I did that with my own kids and other people's kids. How did that? I think I need you to tell me what your question was again, because I'm not sure that I answered it.
How did that season challenge you the way you saw yourself as a mother and leader?
Oh, and that's why I mentioned personal development. I think my personal development was what helped me to realize that I was doing that as a defense, that I was collecting and protecting all of them as a defense mechanism from my own past, not really as something that was for the benefit of everyone else, although it did benefit all the people around me, whether it was my childcare center families or my own kids. I could see how I was doing it in a way to extend that, I don't want to say trauma, but extend that hurt that I had from being a young person and feeling the need to create safety around myself. So now, as a more open-minded person, I can see how we can feel more safe and secure in our environment, and we can be more open and allow those people, including my own kids, including my adult kids. It's really not only from that separation from that child of my own, but even with my own staff, it's a way more positive opportunity to influence and to create opportunity around us by trusting that everything is okay and trusting that we're working together as a team in order to create that environment.
That's awesome. So, was there a specific moment when you realized striving wasn't going to carry you through this and that surrender was the only way forward?
I think there have been a number of times in my life where surrender has been something that has been real for me. And one of them was a divorce situation where I was about to be a single mom and wasn't sure how I was going to manage or navigate that season of my life. And I had to. My mom also had cancer. My grandma had cancer. My mom was taking care of my mom at the same time, and I was going through a divorce, and so I wasn't very useful. And that was one of those times where I had to just flat out say, I can't be the president of this. I can't solve this. I really need for some intervention to happen here. I need for whatever's going to happen for me to trust that it's going to happen in its best order and exactly the way it's supposed to. I think those cancer situations and aging parents. I mean, I'm of the age where I've had caretaking role for parents who have passed away. And I think that was another time where I had to really use my faith and lean in my faith to say, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. And there's a better plan. There was an intentional plan. This plan was made before they were even born, and it's going exactly the way that it's supposed to. And I'm here to be a part of that, not to try to dictate how that goes. And I'm kind of a type A personality, so I kind of like to put things on the calendar and decide how things are going to go. And it forced me. I need God to talk to me loudly because I don't slow down much, and I have a hard time listening. So I ask often for him to talk louder. But talking louder, sometimes the things that happen are bigger in order to get my attention, for good or for bad. And those are the moments that make me have to stop and pay attention. And one other time was this time with my child, where she was asking for some autonomy, and I had to allow her that time and space and go through all of my own feelings of loss and hurt and abandonment and whatever else came up during that season. And of course she's back in the fold, and of course there's a way better understanding throughout our whole family about talking about things and letting things be free and open to conversation. And but I was not in charge of her. I'm not in charge. You can't control other people, and even when it's terribly, horribly painful, and you can't control other people. You have to let things play out the way they're going to play out, and you have to be there ready and waiting for when it circles around. And it did. And I was waiting the whole time, and it worked itself out. Things always have a way of working themselves out.
Yeah. And it's true. And letting go and letting God is, one of those things. Like, I was up late last night, and we talked about before we got on the air, and the Lord gave me a vision, because I've been really trying to figure out because I too am a type A personality, want the Lord to speak loud to me, but I've been learning how to be quiet. It's a whole journey. And I'm not a quiet person, anybody who knows me really well. But in the surrendering, the Lord gave me, I'm like, Lord, what does it look like? And so he was sharing with me a vision of the ocean. And when you're in the ocean, you just talked about how you guys were just in Fort Lauderdale, whenever that was, and you loved going to the ocean. It's one of my favorite places to be also. But when you're in there, if you work against the waves and against the ocean, it wears you out and you can drown, right? You get caught in a riptide, you're not to fight against it to try to get to shore. the safest way. And I've been in a riptide before, not knowing what it was until all of a sudden now, like as an adult, I figured it out. But my brother and I were exhausted trying to get to shore. We couldn't figure out why we were getting further away. And what it does is it pulls you out. Well, now I know you just let it pull you out. You go to the side and you swim where it isn't. You don't fight against it. You just let it happen. And then you, in a resting form of surrender, you go to the side and then you swim back to shore. But what's beautiful about the Lord, and one of the things one of my friends, Rebecca, said, I go, but what's nice is that the Lord is like a raft, or really a life jacket. And I go to rest in him. She goes, but what's interesting more is you don't even have to know how to do the resting, and he still does the saving. Because you can be wearing a life jacket and not trust to save your life and still fight against it.
Right.
You'll be tired and
trouble.
Right?
Yeah.
And so just realizing how to let go. And what's really beautiful about what happened with your daughter is you're able to minister to other mothers. Like I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. We're not at the stage yet where they're making super independent decisions, but they are asking more to go out into the world.
Yeah.
And we're doing that. But I'm also teaching them, hey, if this happens, have this ready. If this happens, have that ready. Like you're just teaching them, Mom, everything's going to be fine. I go, yes, that's what I want for you. However, if it's back here, you'll act on instinct instead of panic.
Right.
And so just like with anybody who didn't know the thing about the riptide, if they're in Florida or California, I don't know if they even happen in California. We'll just pretend it's everywhere where there's an ocean, right? Yes. There's a riptide that pulls you out into the ocean. Instead of panicking, know what to do. Rest, relax, float. There's so much salt. Don't fight against it, but then, float over. But also, I don't want to go into the ocean that far anyway without a life jacket. But the point is that learn to surrender with life and whatever happens in the ocean or in real time, and to see what God does through those lessons.
Absolutely. And be open to whatever is the intended purpose, right? Knowing whether it's someone else or yourself, knowing that there's an intended purpose that was planned before you even, and that there's nothing standing in the way of that.
Right. So when you think about that season now, do you ever have moments where you realize just how it reshaped your identity, not just as a mother, but as the woman called to lead?
I think it actually created a whole lot more positivity in relationship. I have such a better perspective of how relationship really impacts every single thing we do, whether I'm talking about within my business or whether I'm talking about within my family or whether I'm talking about within my community or whether I'm talking about my interactions nationwide or worldwide in whatever kind of arenas that I'm working in. I'm exposed to people, and I think relationships really are the fabric of every single thing we do. And sometimes they actually turn into opportunities. So if we go into those, if we walk through those doors or peek through the cracks of those windows, knowing that whatever is God's plan is going to be exactly where we're supposed to go, and he's going to open them. All we have to do is lean in. And leaning into those places in an open mentality with a positive attitude and being willing to, they're going to come in the most inconspicuous places. They're going to come from someplace that you never even imagined. So I think that just allowing all of those situations to present themselves, just like being here today. This is not one of, talking from a religious perspective is not necessarily one of my platforms, but it is my belief system, and it is my faith story, and it is part of who I am. All of my kids went to Catholic school, all 6 of them, and whether they're recovering from that, or whether they are living their faith in their own way. I think that was a good representation of me and their life and of their future and their belief system. And I think they're better for it. So that's something that I think we live every day. It's not something we need to be in a building for. I think it's part of our moral character, and we need to be that in the world. So I think it's just a more of an amplification of who I was supposed to be. And I'm really excited to keep stepping into that in all of the arenas that I find myself kind of leaning into, or doors that I kind of keep peeking into, that I go, what are you doing in civic roles? What do you do? Where? What? I never would have thought in a million years I'd be doing some of the things that I'm doing, or speaking in some of the places that I'm speaking. But here I find myself. But in my business, in my tightest knit of impact, whether it's with my family or with my kids, it's those relationships and positive opportunities for everybody to find the wonderful parts of such a diverse group of people. And it's a large group of people, which could sometimes create tricky dynamics, but we have so many different personalities, and they're all genius in their own right. How can they all be so different? But they are. And we all and 3 of them are married, and now there's these babies, and they're out there doing big grown-up things, and it's crazy, exciting, beautiful, amazing. And I have more. I'm so grateful. I have more than I deserve.
That's so beautiful. So what part of this story do you feel would bring the most freedom to another woman who is quietly carrying something she cannot fix?
I think all of the things that I've carried are things that I cannot fix. I think it's in the thinking you can fix it that you're trapped.
Oh,
I think it's the thinking that you can put the due date. I mean, this is my best reference because I have 6 children, but the thinking you can put the due date on the calendar, and that the child in utero is going to show up and do the thing that the calendar says. It's thinking that you have control over carrying or limping along with parents who are aging, and thinking that you get to control what that experience is for yourself or for them. I think all of that being trapped is in you trying to control situations. Most freedom and love and light all comes from just being willing to just walk through it and be open and do the best you can in those moments.
That is wisdom there. It's like, it's a trap. You're so right. It is a trap. You can't fix it no matter what. And I know that we kind of talked about you considering putting this journey into a book, especially the shift from striving to surrender. Or has that felt bigger than you've ever known how to approach so far?
I have about 4 books that I think I need to write. So that feels bigger. I feel like I've come into this season where I've lived so much in just the time that I've been here. And I do feel like I have a lot to share. And I feel like there's something that could help other people by having a frame of reference or having an experience. I mean, something that you learn quickly by having so many children or having access to so many families is that there's so many different people's experiences that you take what works for you, right? You have to be willing to let what doesn't work for you kind of go by the wayside. And I think I have enough information that I could be that kind of resource for people. So does it feel like too much to share? Or feel a little intimidating because I've not done it before, but I really am a lifetime learner. And so I'm all for it. And I do things the hard way typically. So I'm going to probably do it wrong a few times, and I'm going to go, okay, I didn't know. I'm notorious for asking questions that I find out later were like, nobody asks that question. And I'm like, I didn't know not to ask. Why are you not involved in this project when it sounds like you should be? And I find out that there was a conflict of personality that everybody knew except me. I didn't know that, but hey, guess what? The elephant in the room just presented itself because I innocently asked the question. I don't know. But I think the organization of what parts to put together and what parts will be most valuable are probably my biggest challenge. And who do I want to affect most? How can I make the most impact, create the most value? That's probably the biggest container that I have to work with.
That's awesome. That's so beautiful. So, I'd love for you to answer this final question. So, with the woman listening right now who feels like she's failed because she can't fix what's happening in her family, what would you want her to know about surrender, trust, and the way God restores?
Oh my gosh. I think that child walking away for me in the arena that I'm in, working with families, being a mom of I'm an educator already before I had kids, and so then having this business for 20 years and being a mom of so many kids, and there could have been no bigger failure than to look at the childcare chick whose kid walks away from them as if they weren't worthy of being right? And I don't do embarrassment very well. I don't like embarrassment. I'm horrified by embarrassment. I don't act poorly about it, but it really devastates my heart to be embarrassed. So that talk about feeling like a failure. That was a huge, huge failure to me that my own child would walk away. And if I were to go back and remember sitting in that and I had to tell someone else how to get through it, I just have to say there really is no way to get through it other than sitting in it. It's like a death. You have to go through all of the emotions of, are they wrong? How could they say that? The blame, this isn't happening. This isn't true. What are you thinking? You're so ungrateful. What are you even talking about? Why are you acting this way? But then you start to have to point the finger back at yourself and go, what parts did I have control over that I could have done differently? What is she actually talking about? What could I do in the future? How do I need to carry myself through whatever this phase is, whether I know if it's going to come back or not? I still need to be reaching out and saying happy birthday and happy Mother's Day, because our first grandchild was born during that time, which was also absolutely devastating to have missed a whole pregnancy and the birth of our first grandchild. So that was huge. And I'm babysitting for him on Saturday night, so I'm on the other side of it. And we are very open communicators now. So the good side of it is that. But at some point, after I got done blaming and got done reflecting, I had to start asking myself, how am I going to manage? What am I going to do? I have all these other kids who are like in different places. Some were defending her and some were hurt because she's hurting me. And family gatherings are not the same. And something's always missing. And it's a thing we don't talk about. And it was something that was so heavy. At some point, I had to be the leader of my family and say, this is how I'm going to carry myself. I am going to act like this and be like this and start moving towards this. And I started traveling a little and going to some seminars and some retreats and they were all business related, but personal development related. Mm-hmm. And I started really exploring my own personal development. And I can only describe it like when I go through Detroit Metro and I get through security and I'm standing, if you've ever been at Metro Airport and you are at the top of the stairs after you've just gotten through security and you have to go down an escalator to get to the terminals, I feel like I'm standing at the top of those stairs and I'm like, I am about to run with scissors. I'm trying alone. And There's so much excitement in the air, and people are going places, and they're doing things. And what are they doing? Where are they going? What are they going there for? There was this sense of like breaking open what is happening in the world that I can see, can go do, can experience. And in that excitement of, I'm going to go try something, I'm going to go learn something, I'm going to go be somewhere. It didn't say that I wasn't still hurting, but it gave me the opportunity to explore something else within myself. Life 360 told my kids I was landing in Miami, and they're like, "What? You're where?" It says that husband is at home still. And I'm like, yeah, I came by myself. What? What are you doing? Do you know these people? No, I met them online. And they're like, you're going to be murdered. Well, no, I'm not going to be murdered. I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. I lived. I'm sure I was in a couple places that were sketchy, but I didn't know any better.
Ignorance is bliss.
Oh my God. Now I'm on the other side of it, and I know that. But it was fantastic, and they were all other learning opportunities. So I think, to get back to your question, just, you have to go through it. You have to go through it. You have to sit in it. And then as you come out, as I came out of it, I started to open up to what are the other opportunities. And I've turned into someone they didn't almost recognize. They don't fully know what I actually do. And I say, when they call me and I don't answer, they're like, what else do you have to do besides be my mom? What are you doing? What do you mean you have a meeting? Why do you always have meetings? What are you going to another council meeting? Like, you're the what on the what?
What else do you have to do besides be my mom? That is probably the statement of a lifetime when it comes to being a parent. And I am in that season right now, obviously running a business. And, the other weekend I was feeling so unbelievably stressed. I thought I was going to explode. And I'm like, maybe I'll just run away. Not because I don't love everybody. It was just, I was at a point where I'm just like, I need to not be needed. But then I also know there's people hurting out there who want to be needed and aren't.
Yes.
So it's not to throw shade or anything at the person who needs. It's just sometimes self-care needs to be something that you do so you don't explode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
all they care about is, can you watch my dogs this weekend? Can you put it on your calendar to watch my dogs? I know if I get it on your calendar weeks in advance, the chances are better. Yep. Yeah. Of course I can. I want to. I love them. They're my grand dogs, because we had dogs during COVID. We had 7 dogs come during COVID because all of the kids didn't have kids yet. So we had dogs, and so I love them. But you learn so much about yourself by going through those crises, and you come to the other side, and it's not ever, nothing stays exactly the same. Nothing ever stays exactly the same, right? And you are going to land exactly where he wants you to. You have to be open to seeing the door crack open or seeing the window crack open, and being open to the relationships or the situationships that, and I'm not saying that like go outside of whatever your personal relationship is. I'm just saying, I know in business or in working within mastermind groups or working in committees, you meet one person and you never know who's going to take you to the next opportunity. But you won't meet anyone if you don't step out there.
Right. Yeah, that's so beautiful. This has been really great, Julie, and I really thank you for sharing your story with such humility and strength. And if today's conversation has met you in a tender place, we remind you of this. Surrender is not weakness, it's trust. And God is faithful in the spaces we can't control. If this episode encouraged you, we ask you to share it with those who need help in their own refining season. And always remember, your story doesn't end in brokenness. It ends in calling. Till next time.